Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Torah with your host, Rabbi Anibal. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for being there. Now, without the echo. I don't know why the echo. Oh, I was recording songs. That's why I have the echo on. Sorry about that. Welcome, Shelly. Welcome, David. Who else is there? Let me know. Let me know. Don't be shy. I want to know who's there joining us. And I want to know if you have your coffee ready. I do. Hello, Judy. Welcome to the class. I have my, again, double espresso with cream and one stevia. That's it. Very simple. Nothing fancy. 100% delicious. Wesley? The man of the earth. Okay, welcome. Welcome to the class. So we are going to study about Parshat Vayeshev. And this is something different. Okay, sorry. Let me. Okay, bye, Wesley. I usually teach about Hanukkah the week before Hanukkah. That's my tradition. I've been doing that for years. But this class is going to be different. Even though this is the last Torah L'chaim before Hanukkah, I'm going to teach about Hanukkah this Saturday after services. Hello, Jerome. Welcome to the class. I'm going to teach about Hanukkah this Saturday after services. We have this new project here at the Shari Zedek called the... how is it called? The way we call it. The Kiddush Club, I believe it is. The Shabbat Kiddush Club. So I'm going to be teaching after the Kiddush, and I'm going to stream it. You know me by now. I stream everything. So, yeah. So, again, welcome, Jerome. Welcome, Ariel Lee. Welcome to the class. So, no Hanukkah today, but I'm going to be teaching, God willing, I'm going to be teaching about Hanukkah this coming Saturday after the Kiddush. Okay? So, the Kiddush Club. Don't get confused with the L'chaim Club. The L'chaim Club is right after services, and we toast the Shabbat with a little bit of whiskey. But after Kiddush, we are going to go back to the chapel to study about Hanukkah. That one is going to be the opportunity to study. And I'm going to do something a little bit different because I'm going to bring a few texts from the book of Maccabees that we don't really study that because they didn't really make the cut to be canonized as part of the Jewish Bible. But the books are still there, and I'm going to expose you guys to what the book of Maccabees said about the story of Hanukkah, and we will see about how much it is the same or different from the official narrative from the rabbis in the Talmud. So I think it's going to be a unique opportunity to study about Hanukkah with a little bit of a twist, just to make it a little bit different. Welcome, Lori. Welcome to the class. So, yeah. So what we are going to do today is to study Parshat Vayeshev, which, by the way, I went back to my notes from previous years where I taught for this Parsha, and I never really thought about this Parsha to Torah L'chaim. It was always about Hanukkah, so I always skipped Parsha Vayeshev. I never had the opportunity to teach about what the Torah says about this week's Parsha, which I found it interesting, and I was never aware that was the situation. Okay, so Ariel Lee said, is it okay to just come? Let me highlight it. He said, is it okay to just come to the Kiddush Club and not to the service? Yeah, of course it is. It's going to be the Kiddush Club about 1:15-ish. Because it always depends on how long the service is. So 1:15 to 1:30, 1:30 top is when we are going to start with the class, and it's going to go all the way from 45 minutes to an hour. Okay, otherwise the day is too long for all of us. So that's the way it's going to be. Okay, I hope people you're going to make it in person or you're going to connect. Just mark your calendars that this Saturday around 1:15 p.m. Central Time, which is Winnipeg time, I'm going to be teaching about Hanukkah from the chapel. So we are going to have a live audience, okay? But at the same time, it's going to be streamed the same way that I did last time that I taught for the Kiddush Club, okay? So we're going to start in a minute. Again, go for your coffees, tea, hot chocolate, I don't know, maybe pop, soda pop, how we call it here in Winnipeg, soda pop. Do you say soda pop in other places as well? Let me let me know how you call it, like the Coca-Cola or Pepsi Cola. How do you call those? Here they call it soda pop. I know different places they call it differently. And I'm wearing my Dor Hadash T-shirt. Look at this. This is my youth choir T-shirt because after my work day here at Sherry Zedek, I have a rehearsal with the youth choir and we are going to record a video today. So I requested all the kids and myself should be wearing the T-shirt. And this is funny because and I'm pretty sure some of the kids are going to forget. But what they don't know is I have a bunch of extra T-shirts in the back of my car because I know they're going to forget. So anyway, Ariel is soft drinks. Okay, yeah, soft drinks somewhere. Ha! Laura, you're on the city bus. Let me tell you something about city buses and thing that when it was Cantor Leslie's installation, I had to miss it because at the same time I had a wedding in Florida. Remember we talked about that, and I was able to play to watch the Kabbalat Shabbat service from Florida on my way from the airport to the hotel. It was 1 hour drive, and I had a perfect time to watch the whole service. So I know how it feels. Kate King, what's your name? I don't know because all this is here is Kate King. So you say pop. Americans usually use soda, just soda. Okay, but welcome to the class, Kate King. Let's begin with today's class because we have a thing. Oh, Ariel Lise, when are you having another concert with the youth choir? It's not going to be a concert, but next week Shabbat on December 20th, we have what we like to call a super Shabbos. That's the way Cantor Leslie named it. So we are going to leave it that way. She called it Super Shabbos. And we are having a bunch of people participating. So one of the participation will be Dor Hadash. We're going to do the opening song and the closing song. So the kids are going to come with the T-shirts, all the gear, and the microphones, and they're going to do that. But we have also the Ruach choir participating, and a musician is going to do to be very, very nice. Okay, and we also have two bar mitzvahs, two adults bar mitzvahs. So don't miss it. Don't miss it. Lori is a Coke. We call everything Coke. Yeah, well, here Coke is the Coke. But where I'm coming from Argentina, Coke is Coca. We call it Coca. Okay, let's begin with the class and this week's parsha. The parsha is called Vayeshev because the first word of the parsha is Vayeshev. It says, Vayeshev Yaakov ve'eretz megurei aviv be'eretz Canaan. Before I continue, Ariel Lee. Yes, December 20th, service starts at 10 a.m. So, back to the Parsha. Vayeshev Yaakov. It said, now Jacob was settled in the land where his father had sojourned, the land of Canaan. And this is very interesting because I'm going to take this verse away a little bit from the literal sense. Because we know that literally this means that Jacob settled in a specific land. And that's all good. That's all good. But there are rabbis that they are taking this verse as a metaphor. Okay? And that's what I wanted to bring to you. Because you're going to see in a minute. It's talking about everything that Jacob had to go through. And this settling down is pointing not about Jacob settling in a land, but an attempt for Jacob to find peace. Finally, to find peace. I don't know if you ever took the time to analyze the life of Jacob. He didn't have it easy. And I know you will say, well, but he brought a lot of himself because of what he did, which is true because he did trick his brother twice. But then we kind of learned that he was actually doing with what his mom asked him to do, right? But then he went to the house of Laban, and Laban tricked him, and he married a woman he didn't love because he was swapped on the wedding night. Remember those things? And then he came back, and then Rachel dies, and she couldn't be buried at the Machpelah, Maharat Machpelah, with the other patriarchs were buried. And then he thinks that his son died and it was Joseph. You know, he didn't die, but Jacob thought that he died, and he was going through this eternal mourning because he thought that his son was dead. So a lot of things happened to Jacob, a lot of things. And you would think, why, a person like him that was so close to God and so faithful to the memory of his parents, and why did he have to suffer so much? And is it bad that at the end now he wants to finally settle down and have peace and not suffering? Is that even possible? Is that even his goal? You'll see. We'll see that, because that's what I wanted to explore with you in this class. Hello, Holy Mandelkern. Welcome to the class. Okay, so let's see what happened with Jacob. So let's see what Rashi says about this, right? And again, I want to take the angle of that verse being analyzed as a metaphor, okay? So Rashi says, Jacob desired to settle in tranquility. But there pounced upon him the agony of Joseph. For when the righteous wish to settle in tranquility, God says, is it not enough for the righteous what is prepared for them in the world to come, that they ask also for a tranquil life in this world? Let's take a minute, guys. Take a minute and read again this statement. And I want to know your reaction, your emotion. What does this make you feel? What does this make you feel? This statement of Rashi. When imagine the voice of God saying, it is not enough for the righteous what is prepared for them in the world to come, that they ask also for tranquil life in this world. In other words, we already know that when a righteous person dies, what is waiting for that person in the world to come is the greatest reward you can imagine. In fact, we can't even imagine the kind of reward that a righteous person, a tzaddik, will enjoy in the world to come. Okay? That is guaranteed. But we have no control over it. The thing is that God is saying, look, this is what is waiting for you there. And he said, do you also want that kind of life down here? What do you think God is saying here? Let me know in the chat. I'm very curious to know your reaction to this and what you think about this statement. Meanwhile, you know me, I'll have my coffee before it gets colder. What do you think? Oh, Jerome, let me highlight this. So Rashi implies that peace is not good for the righteous. Let me read it again. This is huge. This is huge. He implies that peace is not good for the righteous. Holly, you said, when Jacob is preoccupied with the fate of Joseph, it will be hard for him to settle for a good life in the world to come. Maybe God is challenging him to say no. Okay. Lori, what do you say? I want a life to be a meritocracy. I study Torah, I give tzedakah, I hold my tongue instead of lashing out. I'm good. I want a good life. Yeah, it's interesting because and Jerome said that righteous need to be tested at all the time. Ariel Lee, you said, is it like Job being tested? And there is a little bit of the concept here of test, right? Because then we have the problem of trying to explain why the righteous suffer. And that is an eternal thing of religion, not just Judaism. I believe every religion is trying to at least answer that question. What does the good person have to suffer while the evil people seems to be doing so great? Okay? And now, going back to the words of Rashi, then we start having a little bit of light, a little bit of clarity of the answer to that question. Because if God is saying, listen to this, if God is saying that the righteous are not tranquil, let's put it that words, right, in this world, because they are going to have a blissful peace in the world to come. Now I want you to think, guys, think about how will you rephrase this statement from Rashi if it would be the other way around. If Rashi will be talking about the opposite from a righteous person. If Rashi will be talking about an evil person, how will that statement be rephrased? Think about that for a minute, because that answer is going to be fundamental to understand what I want to share with you after this text. Okay? Shelley Chochinov said, we are all tested. It's how we deal with it that determine if we become righteous. Okay, very nice. But try to think about now this text, the opposite. Exactly the opposite. Let's see who is the first of you answering to that. Who is the opposite? I will give you just a few more seconds. I have to move to the next slide. Okay, I'll move on, and you will see exactly what I'm talking about here. Look at this. Let's go to the Talmud now. Talmud says, Rabbi Yohanan said, in what way is Israel compared to an olive? Just as an olive does not give forth its oil without being crushed, so too the Jewish people will not return to the proper path without being subjected to suffering. And by the way, it's interesting because the Talmud is talking about Israel, but remember that Israel is also one of the names of Jacob, right? Jacob's name was switched to Israel. So this also applied for Jacob. In other words, what it's implying here is that sometimes we need all this, these little pinches. Somebody's pinching you on the side to keep us alert. That if we relax, then we become lazy and we change. And then we change. And I read one story, and I can't remember which fish it was, that the companies, the shipping companies were having problems transporting this fish, from one place to the other to the world, because you you couldn't just freeze it and send it. The flavor will change. So what they did is they used to ship this fish with some of the natural predators on the same container, so the fish will be moving all the time, preserving the flavor. Right? It's very interesting. They will keep, and then once the shipment will arrive, then the fish will be killed on the spot and not where they were coming from. So it's this is pretty much the same in the sense that if we relax, we become lazy, and we forget about God, and we forget about our destinies and all that stuff. So that's why. That's why. Sometimes we cannot. We feel, I finally feel that I can relax, but then something happened in life and I cannot relax. Do you feel that ever happens that to you? So there is a precedent for that, and we can see it in this week's parsha. So let's continue. So listen to this. It was taught. Continue with the Talmud now. It has been taught. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says, "The Holy One, blessed be He, gave Israel 3 precious gifts, and all of them were given only through suffering. These are the Torah, the land of Israel, and the world to come." Right? Lori, you said, wicked people commit the cruelty and yet are forgiving and help. Nope. What happened is, and I will mention it now because it's going to come later in the words of the rabbis. Remember what I said? Define for me the statement in the other way around. So if I said to you that righteous people can never find peace in this world because they're going to have peace in the world to come, the opposite statement is evil people won't have peace in the world to come, so they can have peace in this world. Okay? Think of it that way. Think of it that way. And the theological concept and how that happened, just be patient. It's going to come in this class, and I want to bring you the text. Okay? The source for what I'm just saying. The source of why we believe that being too comfortable in this world, it's not necessarily a good sign. Okay? And being uncomfortable in this world usually should be understood as a good sign when we are talking on our beliefs in the world to come, right? Everything starts with that. Everything starts with the belief that there is a world beyond this world when you're going to reap the fruits of your spiritual work in this world. So, but be patient. We're going to be there. We're going to be there. Okay, but for now, again, the Talmud continues. So that everything good comes with suffering. And they said, everybody talks about this. Have you ever heard the phrase, no pain, no gain? No pain, no gain? This is pretty much the same. So in the sense that when Jacob wanted to settle down, it means, it's God saying, don't you think you have anything else to give? Are you giving up? Because giving up means not doing anything. When we die, then we go to a world that, yes, there is nothing else for us to do. The only place where we can do is in this world. And if we become lazy and we stop doing, then why are you still around? So basically what happens is sometimes we don't have the peace we think we deserve, because that means that we still have something to give to the world. That could be something more to give to your family, to your community, to the world in general. But that's what it is. Yes, and Ariel Lee, you were saying, yeah, sometimes what happened is, longing for that peace, and the saying that, because the minute you say, I deserve this, that is when arrogance kick in. You know what I mean? I deserve it. It's my right. we have to be careful sometimes when we talk to God that way. I deserve it. You know what I mean? Let's continue here. Back to the beginning, right? And at the end of the day, when we are talking about things that happened to Jacob and many of the circumstances, and so why will he go through that while he have to go through this? Well, the Talmud actually says that everything is in the hands of heaven, except for the awe of God. In other words, what this means is that everything, circumstances in our lives are coming from God. What is not coming from God is the way we react to it. That is up to us. God cannot control the way we react to the situations, the way we read the situations. That is something that we have to work on that ourselves, on the way we react to everything that happens to us. Do we get angry with God? Maybe we take it as an opportunity to feel closer to God, right? If you believe that, God is keeping you alert and productive, then at the end of the day, then it's an opportunity that God is giving us to do more. It's very interesting. But again, this is a huge thing in Jewish theology, being able to say everything is in the hands of heaven, everything comes from God, except the way we react to those things. Let me think. Let me know in the chat what you think about that. And then, by the way, if you haven't done so, please subscribe. And somebody taught me something interesting. Look at YouTube. If you're on YouTube, every time that I say the word subscribe, the subscribe button should illuminate. Let's try again. Subscribe. Did it work? Let me know. I want to know that. Oh, Laurie said, I don't want to do this again. No reincarnation. Yeah, well, the concept of reincarnation is slowly making its way into Judaism. Something that before was not mainstream, now it became mainstream. Maybe one class I should dedicate to that. Let's continue. Now, let's read what Rashi has to say about the statement that I read, that everything is in the hands of heaven except our reaction to that. Okay? Rashi explains it this way. He says, everything is in the hands of heaven. Everything that occurs to a person is from God. For instance, whether the person is tall, short, poor, rich, smart, dull, light, dark, all of this is from heaven. But whether a person is righteous or evil is not from heaven. This is the responsibility entrusted to the individual. There are two paths presented to each person, with the intention that he should choose the path of fearing God. Okay? It's very interesting. So in other words, when we come to this world, the way we are physically and the family, what we are born into, is not in our control. It is what it is. The place where you live, your neighbors, the politics of the country. It is the way it is, but it doesn't mean that you cannot choose your own path, and that is the thing. So, yeah, Jerome, you say free will. Yeah. This is very important. Very important that we understand that Judaism believes in free will, okay, regardless of our circumstances. Especially, and again, that's why one of the mitzvot that we have in our lives is Talmud Torah. It's one of the 613 commandments of Judaism, which is to study Torah. And the reason why this is a mitzvah to study Torah, it's because Torah, or the study of Torah, is the one who is going to guide you into understanding this concept that don't blame your circumstances to try to justify what you do. Well, I was born to the wrong family. I'm too young. I'm too old. I'm the wrong gender to do certain things. We like to blame circumstances instead of really trying to live a life where we try to improve our behavior. Okay? And remember, blaming circumstances is something that the Torah brings at the very beginning. When Adam and Eve actually ate from the forbidden fruit, and they were blaming the circumstances. Eve said, well, the snake gave it to me. Adam said, well, the woman gave it to me. It's human nature. That's what the Torah is trying to say. It's human nature. It's at the beginning. But if we don't learn to stop blaming the circumstances, we are going to lose paradise again. That's why they lost paradise, because they were not able to take responsibility of their actions and blaming the right person, which is themselves. That's what I think. Okay, so let's continue with this, because now let's read Tosafot. Tosafot will now explain. Rashi explained the Talmud. Tosafot will explain Rashi about the Talmud. It's very interesting. So I gave you now 1, 2, 3 levels. Listen to this. Tosafot will add something interesting. They said everything is in the hands of heaven except for chills and fevers. I always love this one. And they say this means that things like lions and thieves and other bad occurrences are decreased from heaven. Okay? But chills and fever are not decreased because one can avoid them. Certainly, if someone wishes to kill himself by jumping into fire or a river, he can, even though his death was not decreed. This is different than the concept of everything in the hands of heaven except for the awe of heaven, because that refers to a person's attributes, whether he's strong or weak, poor or rich, tall or short, wise or dull. But this refers to events which occur to a person. Okay? Ariel Lee, you say, let's see, but there is a lot of injustice and we need to speak up for making the world a better place. So yeah, that's what I mean. The injustice that you see around is not in your control. You cannot control what people say or do. But you are in control of how you react to that. If you speak up or not, okay? Or where or how you speak up or not. It's going to be, so that's what it is. That's what it is. It's we have to learn that the way we react is on us. It's on us, the way we react to events. It's our responsibility. Let's continue here. Okay? So, I wanted to bring this verse from Deuteronomy because it's talking, even in the Torah, we are still learning about God's character. Let's put it that way. When we are talking about the life of for Jacob and everything that happened to him and why God will do that to poor Jacob. So the Torah itself, in the book of Deuteronomy, and remember, these are the words of Moses, the one who was the closest to God. This is what Moses says about the qualities of God. Moses says, the rock, whose deeds are perfect. Perfect. Yeah, all God's ways are just. A faithful God never falls, true and upright indeed. And this is a very harsh statement that Moses is doing, is presenting here, in a sense that explaining that God is, what is the word in English? Infallible? That everything that God does is perfect. It's and it's up to us to try to learn from the circumstances. And sometimes we are able to do it, sometimes we are not. And that's life. Sometimes we cannot make sense of of things. Sometimes we will have to wait until we die to fully understand the master plan. But Moses already had this in mind when Moses said this in the Torah, in the book of Deuteronomy. So you see, talking about that statement from Moses. Now the Talmud will say a person should accustom himself to say everything that God does is for the good. Is this easy to say? No. It's one of the most difficult things to say in this world. And that's why the Talmud feels that they have to teach about this, for us to think about this statement. If this was something that will come to us naturally, to go around every time we see an injustice or something bad in the world to say everything that God does is for the good, the Talmud won't even wait its time talking about this. But we talk about this because it's not natural to us. It's something that some people will call it the ultimate goal of spirituality, to try to reach this level. When we can feel close enough to God to feel this way. And even when we are able to say this, everything that God does is for the good, it doesn't mean that we understand it. It means that we have faith. Faith is, I explained to you this before, faith is uncertainty. We can never be sure of the whys, but nevertheless, we believe that there is a master plan. And one day, not in this world, we are going to be able to understand it. It doesn't mean that we cannot attempt to understand certain things ourselves. What I do believe, and here is where we have to be very careful, is that there is nobody who can actually help you individually how to read events in your own life. I believe that is something that you should discover by yourself. It's nobody is living your life. You are living your life. So it's your own path, your own task, right? Your own task to try to make sense of things that happens to you. Now, listen to this, for example. What happened to Rabbi? This is a famous story mentioned in the Talmud. That it says Rabbi Akiva was once traveling from place to another. When he reached a particular town, he looked for an inn in which to dwell, but found none. He declared, everything that God does is for the good. Rabbi Akiva, the great Rabbi Akiva, of course, he believed that, right? He went to sleep in the open, accompanied by a cock, a donkey, and a lantern. The wind blew and extinguished the lantern. A cat came and ate the cock, and a lion came and ate the donkey. You have to imagine Rabbi Akiva at that time. He lost everything he had. Yet, he declared once again, everything that God does is for the good. On that night, a group of bandits raided the town and took its inhabitants captive. Rabbi Akiva said to his disciples, did I not tell you that all God does is for the good? So what does it mean? Well, we have Rashi explaining the anecdote, and Rashi said, had the candle been burning, or had the cock or donkey been alive, making noise, right? Rabbi Akiva will have been discovered and taken captive. So, again, this is now an attempt to try to understand the circumstances of what happened to Rabbi Akiva, and trying to understand the best we can, or how to make sense of the circumstances to understand that it was something good and positive about it. And I feel good for Rashi trying to understand this. Maybe this story is easier than some others things that happen to us, right? On how to see the positive thing behind this. Because you could say, okay, so why didn't God, out of life for Rabbi Akiva, take those bandits to another town? Right? Why did God have to do it in a way that, the donkey, the rooster, and the lantern, I think this is for us to understand that things happen for a reason. One day, maybe we will understand it. Jerome, you said it also doesn't mean that what we do is for the good. No, we have to try to do everything for the best we can. Okay? We have to always aim, at least, to do everything the best we can. But I love the story of Rabbi Akiva because it leaves a door open to not be too rushed, not being too rushed to say, when somebody asks you, hey, how are you doing? And you will say, terrible, terrible. Huh. If I will tell you what happened to me, you will agree with me. And that we are too rushed to judge our lives. That is, everything is bad, everything is terrible, everything is misery. And maybe that's why when you come to synagogue, every morning service starts with us counting blessing. I don't know if you noticed that. We call it Birkot HaShachar. Before we go into the Amida, which is when you ask God for things, the first thing you do when you come to synagogue is you count your blessings, and then you ask God for things. Why do you have to start by counting blessings? Because then you realize that maybe you came to synagogue to ask God for all the things that you don't have, and then you realize, well, actually, look at how much I already have. I have, for instance, I'm alive. Um, I have family, I have friends, I have a community, I have a synagogue where I can come to daven, right? So it's very interesting. Yeah. Let's continue with this. Let's go to Lutzato now. And I love what he has to say here. The Ramchal says, we know that in truth God only desire is to bestow good. And he loves his creation like a father loves his child. Okay? This is also very important for us to understand. However, the love itself can justify the father bringing suffering to his child for his ultimate benefit. As it is written, as a father disciplines his child, so too does God discipline you. Therefore, divine judgment and law itself are based upon and flow from God's love. And this is times difficult for us to see, because nobody wants to go through situations, right, when we feel that we've been disciplined. And I see it with my own son, right? When he is failing to do his homework and thing, and I take away his device, his phone, and he feels that I'm the most terrible person in the world. And I have to deal with that, right? For him, quote unquote, hating me for a while for having to do that terrible thing to him. And sometimes he cries. And the pain is real. I won't lie. I can feel it, that his pain is real. But as a parent, I understand that ultimately it's for his own good. And I can see it. I can see it because I can see beyond today. My son, he's still too young to be able to understand situations on mid and long term, right? Or they say, he still doesn't understand why he needs to create a routine and do all his homework and to be well focused on his studies, and how responsibility comes first, and then if he has time, he can go and play games with his friends. When it's up to me to teach him that. And if he forgets it, he has to go through uncomfortable situations for a while. And it doesn't mean physical punishment, right? But it has to be things that are uncomfortable for him. No TV, no phone, no play date sometimes, because homework is piling up. So there is no time for a play date for the next class. So these are things that happened, and we all understand it, but we never stop and realize, well, maybe am I going through something similar in my life, that I should be dedicating my life to do something more elevated and closer to God, but I'm not doing it, right? Because spiritually I'm still a child, and God is playing a parent's role here. And I'm going through uncomfortable circumstances to learn the lesson, and maybe the quicker I learn it, the faster I will move on to the next level, right? But the same thing when we come back to this parsha, it's something that, and this is where we'll make the mistake, this never stops. for as long as we are alive, for as long as we are alive, you can expect some uncomfortable things because and it doesn't have to be major. They're just things, enough for us to remember. Our mission to remember that there is a God, but it's all about because God wants us to be close to God. It's like, God has always said, I'm here. If don't you ever forget that I'm here. That's what Luzzatto is saying. Now let's go back, Moses. This is incredible because we all try to understand why God does what God does. But even Moses, listen to this, Book of Exodus. Moses said, show me, please, your glory. What does it mean? What does it mean, show me your glory? God, please explain to me who you are, why you do what you do, so I can fully understand you. Fair request. If you would have God in front of you, wouldn't you ask that from God? Say, God, please explain to me the ways you operate. Why do you do what you do? Why there are so many things that we don't understand? Can you explain that to me? Why did you allow the evil to happen here and there? Explain that to me. I want to understand, please. So that's what Moses asked God. Moses, the person who was closer to God in history. And God said to Moses, you are not able to see my face, for man cannot see me and live. Okay, again, this is metaphor, right? We are now portraying God as a person, but it's just for us to understand the concept. And God said, behold, there is a place before me, and I will stand you upon a rock. And I will be, and it will be that when my glory passes over you, and I have placed you in a cleft in the rock, and I will cover you with my hand, and you shall see my back. You shall see my back. My face you shall not see. In other words, what it's saying here is that we can see God, or we can analyze God after the action is done. We can never, or we will never be able to fully understand God to the point that we will be able to predict what God is going to do. But what God is telling to Moses here, after I pass, after the situation, after the things are done, then yes, then you can look at me, you can try to make sense, you can try to understand the situation, but not before. And yet, many times we fail, but nevertheless, we should always try to understand what is the message for us in everything that God does. And Holly, what you said, it's especially hard for us to see the ultimate benefit of fathering from God when we have collective pain as people. Yeah, of course it's difficult. Of course it's difficult. And I despise, and maybe that's too harsh of a word, but I do, when there are these gurus that they are trying to tell you why things are happening to you. And I always think, how do you know? How do you fully comprehend the life of somebody else? I believe everybody should be trying to understand the events on their own life, not try to analyze other people's life. To tell, oh, I will tell you why God punished you here. I don't believe there is anybody in this world who can do that. This is our own homework, guys. To try to understand that. So, Pirkei Avot, it is a Mishnah, will say, Rabbi Anibal taught, we cannot understand the peace of the wicked and the suffering of the righteous. Right? Is all the details and things, we don't have access to the full extent of other people's life. And the Mishnah understood that. And you see, Rabbeinu Yonah will say, we know that in truth there is an explanation for the matter, but we are not capable of comprehending it. So, in other words, what Rabbeinu Yonah said, it doesn't mean that there is not a reason why there is peace for the wicked and suffering for the righteous. There is a reason, but the full extent of that, we will never be able to comprehend it in this world. That's the thing. Now, back to the Ramchal, Luzzatto. He said, The good deeds of the wicked and the evil deeds of the righteous, which constitute a minority, are dealt with in this world through its gratifications and sufferings. It is in this world that the wicked are rewarded with prosperity for their few virtues, while the righteous are punished for their few faults. So, in other words, this is to me one of the most interesting pieces of theology I've ever heard, to try to understand the why sometimes the wicked enjoy the material world in this world, and why sometimes the righteous has to go through so many uncomfortable situations. And what Luzzatto is saying here is that there is no such a thing, and we study about this on Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, when we talk about the book of life and the book of death and the book in the middle, right? That we always believe that, there is no such a thing as the completely wicked and completely righteous. We are people that are mostly wicked or mostly righteous. So what Luzzatto is saying here is for people who are mostly wicked, it means that they do have a few good things here and there. So what God is doing is God is rewarding those few good things in this world. All the good things that bad people are enjoying in this world is because God is giving them some kind of reward for the few good things that they do. But when they go to the world to come, after they died, you don't want to be there. And the other thing is true. When you have a righteous person, mostly righteous person, and I said mostly because sometimes we do things that they are not right. We are not perfect in our observance of the Torah or other things, the way we treat people. Maybe we offended one person here and we lied a little bit there, but we're mostly good, righteous. So what it says is the things that we have to deal with in this life are just to take care of those few things. But then when we died, we have no debt. We are clean. We won't have to deal with that in the world to come, and then we can enjoy the full extent of the reward. That's what Luzzatto is saying here. And I thought that this is very interesting, at least, to meditate and to try to go through life with this understanding. Yeah. And yeah, Deuteronomy, I want to close just a couple more texts before we say goodbye. Deuteronomy will say, "Know therefore that only Adonai your God is God, the steadfast God who keeps the divine covenant faithfully to the 1,000 generations of those who love God and keep the divine commandments, but who instantly repays with destruction those who reject God, never slow with those who reject, but requiting them instantly." So Rashi explains that this text, and again, this is Moses sharing with us his own theology, right? Moses is saying, in the words of Rashi, that God, so the wicked are repaid during their lifetime in order to remove them from the world to come. It's a very interesting concept. When you see a bad person that seems to be enjoying material things in this world, think about them. That's all the satisfaction that they're going to have. This quick benefit in this world versus an eternity of bliss that they sacrifice because a little bit of something in the material world. Shelley Chochinov, you see, the injustices of life on earth. What do you mean, Shelley? Let me know. It's interesting. I just wanted to share this with you because of this desire of Jacob of settling down. Say, okay, enough. No more uncomfortable things. And yet, he still has to go through other situations. Even though it's true that at the end of his life, he did enjoy a little bit of peace after everything. He was able to see at the end of his life all his children coexisting in peace, where he probably thought that it was never going to happen, right? When all the tribes were united. And it was the first time in the book of Genesis when the book ends with peace, all the tribes together. So, yeah, yeah. So in any case, and I feel at least I can resonate with this concept that when we think, how come we can never have peace in our personal lives? How come there's always something else? Always something. Perhaps that always something is God's giving us a nod, and it's knocking on our lives. Says, hey, I'm here. Sometimes a little thing, so you won't forget that I'm here with you at all times. Okay. So yes, Lori, may you be like Manasseh and Ephraim and Manasseh. And I know that's Jacob wanted, Joseph wanted Manasseh and Manasseh first, but he didn't get it that way. So, yeah. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Remember, this Saturday, Shabbat, at 1:15, 1:30, I'm going to be teaching about Hanukkah, so don't miss that one. Mark your calendars and hope to see you online on Saturday, or even better, in person at the synagogue. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Again, subscribe and look how that things illuminate. Nobody told me that happened. And yeah. So, and give us the like and see you soon. Bye now.